Yeah, so I'll just
I'm gonna
do
pull over a chair.
a quick introduction. So thanks everybody for coming to this month's Career Development Network. We are extremely fortunate to have Mark Hinkle with us today. He's a veteran of the enterprise software industry, founder of Peripety Labs, and co-founder of All Things AI, which he just mentioned. His expertise spans the internet, open source software, cloud computing, application development, systems management, and artificial intelligence. He advises organizations on AI strategy, helping them align emerging technology with their core business objectives. He publishes the Artificially Intelligent Enterprise, which is a leading AI strategy newsletter with over 250,000 subscribers. And he created AIOS, the Artificially Intelligent Operating System, to train business professionals, teams, and executives on effective AI adoption. He also co-leads All Things AI, which I think you just mentioned, which is a fast-growing community and conference for AI practitioners and users focused on the technologies, processes, and people driving enterprise AI transformation. Mark has held executive roles at Cloud.com, Citrix, and the Linux Foundation, and specializes in bridging the gap between innovation and execution at scale. Wow, what do you think about that for an elevator pitch? So I'd like to turn it over to Mark, and please take it from there.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. I am going to up here. Yes. So this is me. What's great about AI is my double chin is only half as big in that picture, thanks to AI. So thank you, AI, for that. I did a lot of stuff. I come from a small town, central Pennsylvania, probably one of the worst education systems around. I went to an engineering school and never had calculus. When I went to engineering school, I did terribly. And then after 2 years at the University of Pittsburgh, having the time of my life, I ended up getting 3 jobs, getting through school with a bozo business degree, and got extremely lucky to get into tech by accident. And it's been a good career for me. This is not the career advice I would give any of you. And today we're going to talk about career advice. So I'm trying to give you the benefit of my learning as well as what's coming in the AI world. So I'm going to start with a story. So I do a lot of stuff around AI. It's really hot. Everybody wants to talk about AI. If you're good at it, people want to talk to you. If you're bad at it, they still want to talk to you. So you guys can decide afterwards. But this week, I was supposed to be working on my Peripety Lab stuff. And what I basically did, this is the 4th day in a row, I am giving a talk. And it's not a bad way to play hooky at all. So thanks for having me. But I've been on my feet and talking for the last 4 days. So I have a big bottle of ginseng tea here. My knees are shot. And so I'll be sitting a little bit. But if you have questions as I go through this, feel free to be interactive. I'm sorry, the people online, are they going to be able to ask questions? Okay, that's cool. All right. So how many people here are concerned about how AI is going to affect their careers? How many people are concerned about their kids who are probably in college right now and how AI is going to affect their careers? That's it's valid. And after this, I think it will, but it could be good, it could be bad, and let's set up everybody for success. So that's my what I want to end up with today. Now, I said I talked 4 times this week, and I have been running back and forth from event to event. And Last night, I realized I did not have slides for today. And I hate that. I hate not being prepared. It drives me nuts. I have tons of slides. I've given lots of talks. I have tons of notes. I have recordings, but I didn't have slides for you today. So what I did was I delegated to my AI agent. It took me approximately 5 to 10 minutes of my personal time to create the slides, probably 20 minutes to format them and review the slides. But what happened was I used an agent that could see all my email, all my saved meetings, all my past presentations to go through there, and I gave it direction of how to create these slides. So this is a little bit of it's not the first time I'm seeing the slides. It's not the first time I'm seeing the material, but it's one of the first times I'm really looking at how it mixed up. And I wanted to leave it alone, partially because I didn't have a ton of time, but partially because I wanted you to see where AI is today. So we're going to start talking about this, but all of these slides were generated automatically. So I did not do the slides. The formatting, I probably spent 20 minutes because it did a lousy job formatting them. I hate the design on the slides, but the funny thing was every bit of content came from me. I just didn't put it together. So, which is a good thing and a bad thing because I tend to be long-winded. But where we are today is that 75% of knowledge workers use AI. How many people in here are using AI in some way, shape, or form? Okay. How many people are using something other than ChatGPT? Okay, that's pretty cool. How many people are using it at work with their company or organization's blessing? I will not make those who are doing it without their blessing raise their hand. I'm not going to out you, but I do think a lot of people are given tools. Like the number one thing is probably GitHub Copilot, or not GitHub Copilot, but Microsoft Copilot as part of your Office suite, or if you're a Google shop, Google Gemini. Those are the most common. They're integrated into the tools. Everybody should probably know how to use them if you have access to them. They are a productivity boost. But the thing that's interesting about the fact that 75% of the knowledge workers use AI today is that 46% started using AI less than 6 months ago. And I think this was Microsoft's study. Technically, it came out, I think, April. So let's say I had 4 months. So we'll say 9 months ago. So every week, 800 million people plus use ChatGPT. It's the most popular consumer app in history. All right. I don't know how to get rid of that little window. Oh, there it went away. Okay. So anyhow, and it is making a huge impact. So does everybody here work in life sciences? Anybody not work in life sciences? Okay. I know it's open to the public, but generally we have a life sciences. 60 to 110 billion dollars in economic value in life sciences. This is super funny because I quoted this paper in a past presentation. The agent went out and this is what it pulled out from this paper, which I thought was interesting, totally relevant to what we're talking about today is life sciences. But what I'm going to talk about in general is that impact of AI is applicable to virtually every knowledge worker job in the world. So why do we use AI? What's so great about AI? Why is it in the news? It's a force multiplier of what we do every day. It's automation. So back in the day, my great-great-grandfather grew up outside of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, planting seeds in the orchards for apples, picking apples by hand, climbing up ladders, to now they have barns full of equipment, automates all that. It's a great thing. I'm sure my great-great-grandfather had back problems. He did live to be like 99, so it was probably good for him, but in general, technology made his life easier. Diesel engines made our lives easier. Fire made our lives easier. AI should make our life easier. The question is, what stuff are we going to replace and what stuff are we going to double down on? So time savings is great. And a couple stats on time. 28% of our time every week as a knowledge worker is spent doing email, if it stops at that. That's the average across the industry. 50% of our time, this is a new stat I just got last night, is spent manipulating data. That's formatting PowerPoints. That's proofreading emails. That's going through reports in your word processing program. That's the stuff that you take up a lot of time, you add very little value. I mean, spell check has been a thing for a long time. Leaving me to my own devices, I'm pretty creative. And I type too fast, so I put in like 3 extra characters. So spell checking, formatting, things like that are the things that we want AI to help us with. What we really want to be able to do is focus on important work. How many people here are scientists? Okay. We need scientists, and AI is probably not going to make a big difference in your future. The other thing we need, and I'm not saying it because he's my friend and he's in this job, but we need politicians. Unfortunately, it's just the way of the world is leaving that to an agent. They're going to lack some things that we have as human beings, specifically empathy towards other people. Agents are never going to be empathetic. So having us get rid of the email, get rid of the formatting, and really focus on important work. The fact that you have passed organic chem, probably apply it to doing all sorts of cool stuff that makes our lives better. That's not something that gets replaced. Anybody, including your 12-year-old kid, can do email and they can format a Word document. AI should do that. So they probably are not going to figure out what the next compound is that's going to help with therapy for cancer or some other egregious disease or make our lives better. The other thing I like about AI, and this is from Microsoft's work trends, is creativity. The most deadly thing that you can fall prey to in your career, confirmation bias. Like those of you that are scientists, we have a scientific method. We use all the data. We don't just throw out the data and use the data we want, or we shouldn't at least, but having the ability to be creative with the data and using AI as a thought partner, that's my #1 use case right now, is because I'm a strong-willed person and I tend to subscribe to, past behaviors lead to the same results. Sometimes you just get lucky, right? and so being able to have someone dedicated to you, even if it's a virtual someone, to help you think through problems and break your confirmation bias is a huge advantage to me. Now, the other thing that I think is really funny is #4 on this list is improve work enjoyment. I'm not sure that AI improves work enjoyment, but I think if it gets rid of all the things, the bureaucratic, the tedious things in your job, and you get to do the stuff that if you went to school to be, a drug discovery scientist, or, if you went to be a politician and you went to school to be a CEO, if you can actually do that and not answer email, do repetitive tasks, and solve problems, it's probably more enjoyable. So anyhow, this study, I think, is really worth reading because there's 2 things that we think about when it comes to how AI is going to affect work. First thing, this is the saves part. It's going to make us more efficient. This is what leads to these terrible narratives about AI is going to take our job. Yeah, it's sort of like the tractor is now planting the seeds for the apple trees that my grandfather used to dig into the shaly, hard soil and backbreaking labor. Yeah, it's going to replace the tasks that stink. You know, I don't want to ever pick up, like I like to garden like 3 minutes in the afternoon when it's not so hot. I don't like to plant rows and rows of corn. I don't like to pull weeds. I don't like to do any of that repetitive stuff. But these technological progressions have historically caused us, whether it was the diesel engine, the electricity, especially in the rural areas, these things in the short term were very disruptive. In the long term, it created a lot of prosperity afterwards. I'm hoping that's how AI turns out, but this is the most powerful technological trend in our lifetime. So I think it's a disservice to say everything's going to be all right, but I think it's a better service to you is let's be prepared so everything will be all right. I think the problem we have with AI is sci-fi. Like, how many sci-fi movies have the happy ending? I mean, The Matrix, after 4 episodes, yes, we finally got rid of Agent Smith, but it's not, it's always a dystopian, people living in pods and the AI is taking over. I would like to help us write the story where AI is our tool and not our master. So that's my approach to all of this. So the other thing that's really interesting and important right now and is the compounding effect of upskilling for AI. I did the analysis, and the analysis is basically a colleague of, if you and a colleague both invest your time into improving your career, and one of you invest your time into networking and one of you invest your time into upskilling, within 90 days, you will be 2.7 more times capable of using AI than that colleague who did something that was not in the upskilling space. So it's an opportunity right now to get those skills, and they accrue over time. So let's look at it this way. Say, and I really like drug discovery and AI, simply because a lot of the drug discovery is something that can be automated. So the University of Scotland 2 years ago looked through all of the Senolytics solutions out there of off-patent drugs. It was like, I forget, 50,000 compounds. Within 5 minutes, it came down to 5 compounds that could have a significant effect on aging. Now, it wasn't saying, so they had all the data, all that data was done by scientists, but for them to go back, there's no incentive in it because it's off patent, so you can't, jack up the prices and sell it to insurance companies for a lot of money, but these drugs were still super relevant. So that work originally was done by lots and lots of scientists who collected lots and lots. My bad. And then what happened is it requires more and more people and overhead to analyze that data. So that's a good use of AI, is science done by scientists, AI taking the fruits of all of the research and distilling it down into something useful. I wanted to illustrate that what you want to do is you want to look at the way that you do work, look at the things that make you unique, what you're good at, what you enjoy, and what are highly unlikely to be automated, and double down on that. And then with the rest, we're going to look at it from AI, to automate with AI. So we're going to start with just pick a single tool and get really good at it. Because I think right now, compared to what we had a year ago, what we had 6 months ago, AI has gotten pretty darn good, and it's going to get exponentially better. So going back to my compounding, while you are learning about AI, pick a tool that you have access to, pick tasks that you add very little value to. So formatting your PowerPoints, sorting through your email. Like I use something called Jace, Jace. I use the automation from Gemini in my email, and it does two things really well. One, it sorts through the 500 worthless emails that I get every day and gets down to the 10 that I need to take action on. That's a good use. On those 10, I might use AI to draft my emails, but I would never automate an email, especially to a client, a customer, somebody I care about, like about the response, to just let AI, and it will do that. And once in a while, I let it do it to my mom because it's funny. Because she definitely is like, "What's wrong with you? You're super polite. You offered to help. You remembered my birthday. All of these things that in real life I'm terrible about." That's doubling down on the AI. I really think if you're going to do anything, regardless of your career, and you want to be competitive 10 years from now, is start today learning. And so I talked about my great-great-grandfather planting apple trees. His grandson would have been my grandfather, was a banker, and he went to World War II, came home, went to work at the bank, did the same job for 30 years, retired. They gave him a gold watch. That era in America and pretty much anywhere else in the world is probably over. He did not have his most technological advancement for his job is when he went from, remember in the movies you might see the crank adding machine to the electric one with the tape. Like he had those green ledgers and would sit there and do all the figures with pen and paper and double check with his calculator. And he was able to do that for 30 years. I'm going to tell you right now, every one of our jobs in the next 10 years is going to be changed in some way, shape, or form. Not necessarily for the worse or for the better, just different. And if you're not adaptable, you're going to have a tough ride. And what I mean by that is I think a lot of the systems we use are going to be automated with AI. I think a lot of the people we interact with are going to be using AI. And for you to have that capability will give you an advantage. But we're going to have to be a lot more malleable than my grandfather. My grandfather was a banker. He got to the bank every day at 9, left every day at 4. They shut the bank. It was a one-branch bank in this little town. Shut the doors from 12 to 1. Everybody walked home, ate lunch. This is not the reality we live in today. I mean, if I still had a lot of paper on my desk, it would be covered in ketchup and coffee spills. But this is the thing, the most important skill is to be a continuous learner right now, because I think it is going to impact us all. And if you do it earlier, you're going to be fine. I mean, there are going to be, yes, go ahead.
Does that also include, like, are you thinking about skills outside of AI, or these specifically?
Such a good question. So the question was, as far as a continuous learner, does it matter about AI or outside of AI? I think it's both. And I think that AI is going to assist us at stuff that we're bad at. Like it helps me learn a lot of stuff really quickly. I never read research papers when I was in college. I read summaries of research papers 3 or 4 times a day minimum. And what AI does for me is like, I don't want to see anything. I don't want to see a sigma anywhere. I do not want flashbacks of the math I had to do in college, but I want to know what the distilled knowledge is. And distilled knowledge might be that, you know, this type of work is going to change. The distilled knowledge might be that the tricks to using large language models are being more explicit in your prompts. I read stuff on all this stuff that applies to my job, but I don't really read it. I read the summaries that AI does. What I do think, and I'm going to get to that part now, are the 3 things that are going to be really important for you to have a good career in the age of AI. And the first one is taste and judgment. So I told you all these slides were automatically generated by an AI agent, which they were. I would never format them this way. I don't think they look terrible, but they are not, some of them are a little noisy. Some of them have too much text. Some of them have some weird formatting, like, but then I look at it and I'm like, oh, it really did pick 3 interesting emojis. I'm not sure that taste and judgment relate to the brain, but it did a decent job. But when I talk about taste and judgment, the taste part is I know what I think looks good on a PowerPoint. I only know that after 30 years of giving PowerPoints. My experience says, you know, I've given this a lot. I would rather have the bullet points be bigger. I don't know that I would actually put the life sciences perspective in there, but in my speaker's notes. But overall, it's like an 80% effort. I'd give it a B minus. But the ability to know what's good and what's not, and I say taste and judgment. So taste is what we're talking about here, the aesthetics of this PowerPoint. Judgment is what comes out of your LLM when you need to apply your domain knowledge. So if all of a sudden it told you that it was really a good idea to drop potassium into water, which would cause an explosion if I recall correctly, your judgment would say, no, that's not a good thing. Like you would know, oh yeah, you would get a reaction. The reaction would be violent and it would probably blow up your lab. That's judgment. You will be getting all of this information processed by LLMs. Having good judgment, which if my mother was here, she would be laughing because the last thing that she would ever think I'd be able to do is tell people to have good judgment because mine has been flawed in my earlier youth. But taste and judgment, that's one of the important things that I think people cultivate. What's going to happen with LLMs is a statistical model. So LLMs, any kind of large language model, or I should say AI model, because they're not all large language models. Some of them are vision, some of them are audio. A lot of them are both, and they're multimodal. But knowing what a good outcome looks like is going to be really important. Empathy and connections. This is probably the thing that is going to be most important. Imagine this. Actually, I hope it improves. So about 15 years ago, I had an accident. I was in the Bahamas, you know, it was great. Hanging out in the pool, hanging out in the ocean, I got an ear infection. Well, came back, I could hardly hear. They gave me antibiotics. And I, you know, didn't think much of it. I took the antibiotics. There's a little booklet on all your pills, like 40 pages in font that you need a microscope to read. And that's just the CYA. It's not a good experience if you want to know what the risks and what you should consider for your benefits anyhow. So what happened was I had an ear infection. I got dizzy, fell down the steps, ended up, couldn't move either legs after I fell. Okay. Called the 911, said, hey, I've fallen. And I'm like, I can't move. And they're like, well, and they're asking questions. You know what forced them to, some of us are old enough to remember the commercials. You know, as soon as I said, I've fallen and I can't get up, she said, okay, send an ambulance. I just thought that was funny. So she lacked the empathy to help me. She wasn't really interested in connecting with me. She wanted to solve the problem quickly. I get to the hospital. I'm sitting in the hallway because there's so many people in the emergency room on a gurney. And my doctor, I went out him. He's a good guy, but his bedside manner is terrible. He's an orthopedic surgeon, right? So he's looking at my leg and goes, you know, you tore your quad tendon because there's a hole. You could put your fist the whole way down to the bone, and my quadricep rolled up. He's like, yeah. I said, well, you know, I can't move my other one. He goes, oh, really? And he looks at the other one. He goes, oh, you tore your patellar tendon in that one. And he's going to say, hey, like just matter of fact, like, hey, you got a flat tire. I'm like, oh yeah, both of your legs no longer work. That lack of empathy was partially probably because that's his personality, partially because he didn't have the time. He was triaging people. I'm like, I was the dude sitting in the like hallway, like you would see on, I don't know, what's the most, I'm not up with the latest hospital dramas, but Seeing Elsewhere in my day, Grey's Anatomy later on, whatever. I'm just the dude sitting there watching everybody go by. That lack of empathy due to the lack of time made my experience miserable. And through all of our discussions, so remember, I was on these antibiotics. Does anybody know what a common side effect for antibiotics is, especially ciprofloxacin and I'm gonna mess it up, quinolones? Tendon weakness. So think about this. Guy's busy, his specialty is orthopedics. He can fix bones. He was the team doctor for the Baltimore Ravens. He's a really good doctor, but he's too busy to be empathetic or make a connection with me. He's just, he's fighting fires. If he had someone or something, tools, to make him focus on the important part of his job, like explaining to me that I was on these antibiotics, they could have affected my tendons. And that's why falling down the stairs resulted in this terrible accident. That's the importance of being able to do your job. Now, the doctor's supposed to make you get better. I would hope they would also connect with their patients, because it's a really scary thing when you're sitting in a hospital bed and wondering whether or not you could walk again. Anyhow, I'm fine now. My knees ache all the time, but if I didn't have that to complain about, I'd find other stuff, so it's good. But empathy and connection is the part that is going to be hard to replace. If I had the ability to connect with him and ask more questions, but I'll never forget this. I was in the hospital for 8 weeks, and they give you these little pads and papers with these pens that hardly ever work. And I would queue up all my questions for that 10 minutes that he had in the day to ask those questions. My hope for healthcare and a lot of other industries is if we had an automated assistant to help facilitate those conversations, I might have known that the reason that my tendons tore were because of the antibiotics. And I might have questioned the fact that they kept me on the antibiotics through both surgeries. And the fact that neither of those surgeries took because the tendons were still weak. In hindsight, you would have known that. At the time, they did the best they could, but nobody was in a position to empathize and make that connection because they were so overwhelmed. It was like a Friday. I guess Friday is a bad day. Everybody goes to happy hour and does stupid stuff or something, but I spent the next 8 weeks in the hospital and got better. But that's one of the places where I think empathy and connection is really important. Final thing is brand and reputation. And I say brand, like we all trust brands, and people, we trust their reputation, but people do have a brand. And I think those are the 3 things that AI will not replace. And so I want us to really focus on those 3 things. So these are the soft skills that I think are important. So your question was spot on. I really do think building connections I'm going to talk a little bit about how I do that, but your network and how people perceive you in a world where we have a lot of faceless, we're going to have customer service bots. Like I started my career doing tech support and customer service for internet service providers. Like that was our distinguishing factor. I think that will be our distinguishing factor in the long term. So being the person that people trust when your alternative is going to a chatbot is going to be really powerful. So let's dive into this a little bit. So when I say taste and judgment, I don't mean snobbery. I mean understanding. So this is amazing. I was really impressed by what it pulled. I didn't like the design of the style, but it talks about where AI fits into the model, into the world right now. And where it fits into the world is it's really good for drug discovery. I talked about the University of Scotland, Edinburgh. Look at the Senolytics study. It was one of the first ones where people got huge outcomes with very little effort. And I think that that is just the beginning. So the other thing is we really need good judgment, experience, things like that to understand the difference between correlation and causation. I think that's going to be one of the things that having a critical mind, the way these models work is it's statistical probability, which is great 80% of the time. The other 20% where they say, hey, you should give the guy who has an ear infection the antibiotic with torn tendons. That 20% of the time, you know, it wasn't just correlation, it was causation, and nobody was looking at it from that perspective. My family private care doctor prescribed the antibiotics. My orthopedist fixed the tendons. Neither one of them said, hey, these two things don't go together. So having somebody with a holistic view and is not too busy to take that holistic view, I think is really important. The other thing is strategy is, yeah, raise.
Because this patient has to have known enough an AI could have. And it causes them to think how will the medical community react to consumers, because you always hear now, oh, get off the internet. But the internet, now AI, it is so important, I think, to empower yourself as consumers, be able to ask these questions of doctors and to even know yourself even better.
Yeah.
So I see the implications of AI for a really powerful future for everyone.
Yeah. So her comment was that she saw as the consumer. I think AI is going to be a great leveler for us because it's going to give every one of us in the next 10 years is going to have access to super powerful AI. And if you know how to take advantage of that, and if you are so flipping the script, if I was at Rex, which was a fine hospital, it would have been awesome if I would have had a chatbot trained on all the things going on so I could ask the questions. Instead of going down the Google rabbit hole, the worst place to get medical advice is a Reddit thread. And it's so tempting, they're like, yes, I've been drinking, window cleaner for the last 3 weeks and I feel great. I'm like, yeah, I think that, and their, username is goofball67819. I mean, like, that's not the person I wanted to get advice from. But I do think what's going to happen is we're going to have access to information more readily in a way that's easier for us to digest. Yes.
Feedback on that comment. Also, like, arguing with your slide here, the case of judgment too. Because I'm not a medical doctor, right? I'm a science doctor, but I've been on the other side of that equation where I've had family members contact me and being like, hey, I read this, or AI showed me this study of this outlandish claim. And it's like, well, yeah, because it pulled it from some random source of the internet. And it's harder to distinguish when ChatGPT says, oh, this thing I pulled, and it makes it sound really nice, but they don't realize it pulled it from like Reddit or like some weird medical thing. So how do you kind of develop that judgment to be able to look at an output and be like, how do I format this, or how do I apply this knowledge I'm learning from AI in a way that I can actually move forward with it, decide what's true, what's not true, or even like, how do I rephrase this to talk to doctors? Because I go to a doctor and say, hey, Microsoft Copilot told me this. The doctor's going to be like, please, dear God, I'm scared what's going on around. But if you say something like, hey, I've noticed these trends and I've done some looking on myself, what about this?
Yeah, so for those online, the question was about how do we foster that judgment that when we're getting information from AI. And I will tell you that for today, at least, it's being a good researcher. So luckily, a lot of you are researchers, but John Reifschneider is the head of the AI master's program at Duke. He's a really smart guy, and he has a company called Inquisit. It was on the news the other night on WRAL. And what they do is they have their platform goes out and searches for data, but there is an actual algorithm that rates the sources. So let's just say, that fun guy 84 on Reddit probably is not going to get the same level of credibility as the New England Journal of Medicine, or I hope he doesn't, unless who knows. Yes.
Looking at the healthcare delivery, I imagine that we will see, I hope we will see the availability to integrate your history for the orthopedist along with trusted sources within a AI.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing, I'm in the quality profession, and American Society for Quality now has its own large language model quality bot application, which takes only stuff that ASQ has decided is credible.
Yeah. So his comment was the fact that he's in the quality industry, and they actually have their own quality bot that's more of a trusted source than the Wild West of ChatGPT or Gemini or Llama, whatever AI model that you're using. Here's the thing that we're running in today, and I'm going to give you a little quick lesson on how AI works. So we start with data. We have all this data, and every large language model has basically scraped the internet. So they're all sort of level playing field there. They've taken all that data. They use a training algorithm. It's the most common one is something called PyTorch, developed by Meta. And it takes this data, creates the model based on all this data. Unfortunately, what we don't have is lots and lots of curated high quality data. So we do something called creating synthetic data. And do you guys remember when DeepSeek was in the news and NVIDIA's stock dropped in half and the world was falling? Basically what they did was they did something called distillation. They're like, oh, OpenAI, and a lot of people do this, OpenAI even does it, but this is a little shady. They were querying OpenAI for data and using that as a source of truth. And OpenAI's data was the internet and other things that they've eventually bought. Like eventually they did buy the New York Times data after they already scraped it and used it. Google is buying Reddit data, and they're buying it for certain reasons. Like Reddit is really good for conversational data, but the factual data is hit or miss there. So what we really need is a really high quality of data. And what we'll see is if you're in quality, he made the comment about my medical history with all of this data, and using, like, my medical history would be good data to help for the care plan for future people that were, had tendon tears while they were on antibiotics. It would help inform the treatment plan, and I hope lots of other people would. But then we have the problem of privacy. So HIPAA, like, does that data get in there? So UNC and Duke and Kaiser Permanente in California can use that data to train their own models, but it's not sharing data. My hope is that someday we figure out how to federate anonymized data in a way that benefits us all. I feel like medical is one of those places where it's a really broken field. Like, if you show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. The incentive for a company is not to cure cancer. The incentive is to create a care treatment plan that will generate tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue throughout the lifetime of the patient. Now we want to extend that lifetime of the patient because we'd like them to live longer, but the worst thing you could do is let your customer die too. So this is the problem with the models right now, is the data quality for a lot of things. It's great for creating a web page, creating software. GitHub has, billions and billions of lines of code for it to see how to create software. What it doesn't have is billions and billions of lines of instructions on how to implement that code at large scale. So you could go today and has everybody heard the term vibe coding? Vibe coding is basically this idea that you can use a large language model to actually give it natural language instructions. So say I want to make an app for my phone that tracks all of my, vitamins and tells me why I take them. I could do that probably here in a 5-minute demo, and we would all be wowed. What we couldn't do easily is take that same app and make it as scalable as eBay or Amazon, because we don't know what the design pattern is. You got to do things like in IT, like break up the workloads with workers and have central databases and shard the data so it's highly resilient. All that stuff isn't there, but it's really cool if all you want to do is have an app for yourself and you're the only one to use it. So I think all of these things are going to get better, but that's just another example of not having enough data.
And the complexity, are you like, even at all of your experience, able to test one that is probably has better resource?
Well, I'm going to answer that two ways. The first one is I think ChatGPT has the most capable model and the best trained, along with Google Gemini. I think Google and OpenAI are at the top of the industry. But when I first got on the internet in the 90s, the number one way, well, actually, this is even before that, I'll date myself even, but let's just say by 98, the number one way that I got all my information from the internet was Yahoo. How many people here today use Yahoo? So I would say that today the best is OpenAI or Gemini. And OpenAI has some advantages over Gemini. It depends on the nuance. Did I just get kicked out? Anyhow, I would say if I'm you today, any knowledge worker, get really good, probably with the three that are most advanced are Gemini, from Google, OpenAI, and then I like Anthropic Claude. And I like Anthropic Claude for a couple reasons. It's really good at writing code. It's really good at writing in a way that makes it sound human. Like, do you remember when how many people ever heard the word demystify before ChatGPT? And how many people today, that's the one that shows up. Rich tapestry, landscape, starting every sentence with a hanging participle, which is like, in a world where AI is taking the world by storm. That's a terrible way to write a sentence, but that is somewhere in their training data. That's what they think is the best way to start. But I would say those three, and it really depends. I sort of gave you just a high level of what they're each really good at, but ChatGPT is a Swiss Army knife for me.
Less than 10 minutes left, and we have some questions from the chat.
Okay.
So the first one is, what do you think of the trajectory of AI and collaborative work?
In collaborative work. So the question was, in collaborative work management, I think it's really, really hard to collaborate with AI today. Probably the best instantiation that I've seen is like, are you familiar with Monday? Monday is like a project management tool they've done a decent job of integrating some AI in there, but probably the way that I collaborate the most is ChatGPT has projects. Claude has something called artifacts. It's well integrated in Copilot, and then Google Workspaces is the ability to share conversations and such if you're part of the same team. But at the end of the day, I don't think it facilitates the collaboration as much as your collaboration on using the tool, just like anything else. But I think it will be advantageous. I think the biggest thing will be for project managers. My wife's a project manager for IQVIA. I wouldn't want that job in a million years. I know anybody that's a project manager. I mean, you're basically herding cats all day. And I think that is where it will help facilitate and streamline. When I started here, I talked about how much email it takes care of. I think that communication for trivial things will allow us to spend more time when they ask an important question versus, you know, just creating a TPS report and sending it around. So, okay.
Yes, or do not. I either personal data. I think this is a question.
Yeah. So business and personal data, this is what happens. I started to tell you a little bit about how OpenAI and everybody else sucked all the data from the internet. And then they put it through this training algorithm. And that's just called train. When you hear training a model, what they're doing is they're creating the algorithm that becomes the model. A model is a algorithm that basically you give it an input, and it's a really complicated one, but it gives you an output. And then afterwards, you can do something, then that's pre-training. Then post-training is after you've trained the model and you say Meta's model is free, and you can actually apply your data to it and update it. Or if you let them update it, it depends on how sensitive the data is. So technically, if there's billions and billions and billions of bytes of data, or there's probably petabytes upon petabytes that they've been trained on, your data is going into a big soup. It's not likely that they're going to say Mark's social security number is, whatever it is. But it's technically would be in there if you fed them in your tax report. So, and these things are probabilistic, not deterministic. So basically, they try and answer your questions based on what it knows with the highest level of confidence. It's a statistical analysis. So unless somebody was asking you, hey, what's Mark's social security number, and I put it in, that's a case where it probably wouldn't leak out. But let's say that you are Moderna and Pfizer, and you're both trying to come up with a drug, and you've fed in your research data and ChatGPT. At that point, that's a case of where that data could probably inform your competitors. So what I think you're going to do is one of two things. You're either going to take one of these large language models. It's actually, you're going to take a small language model. Large language model is super huge, and it's like, it can answer any kind of question. You're going to probably take a smaller model, take your data, and post-train it. So pre-training, they already did with the internet. It has some level of competence. It has probably has Grey's Anatomy in there. It probably has all these medical texts, everything that's public data, and trained it on. And then you take your data as a business, apply it to a model, and you keep it behind your firewall and you don't share. And what's probably going to happen is it's going to be like you're going to go to ChatGPT in the long term, and there's going to be a router behind it. And it's probably not going to be ChatGPT. It's probably going to be, let's just say, Pfizer GPT or IQVIA GPT or Moderna GPT. And they're going to route to the model based on your question. That's, if you see this thing called mixture of experts is the design pattern for a lot of these LLMs you might see in the news. What it's doing is it has a bunch of the different models in the background, and they're the experts. And then based on that router, it will route. And if there's a privacy concern, it wouldn't route to ChatGPT, it would route to Moderna GPT or Pfizer GPT or insert your company name GPT, whatever.
So how does this apply to patent, scientific patents in particular? Because it seems like if you upload anything, it belongs to them now.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, so that's a really good question. So I'm in the software space. I think patents are crap. In the medical fields and materials fields, it makes a lot of sense because that's your moat. And one of the things is it novel in the eyes of someone who's experienced in the art, right? So the question is, you know, couldn't a large language model scrape the USPTO, look for all the patent filings, and then try and, you know, like it would probably co-opt the inventor's invention because it could do it faster. I think that's just a fight that we're all going to do. I think the big thing is you're going to have to establish your application first, because I forget what there's a phenomenon in science where typically there's discoveries that happen in pairs. So whether it's, you know, somebody breaking electronics or somewhere else, that science seems to go out there. But the way you protect it is you file before the competitor. I think it's going to be the same, but I do think what's going to happen is, and I'm sure it's happening now, is people are scouring patent applications and looking for probable patents that could be profitable based on other filings. And that's just the Wild West that we live in. So, cool. Okay.
So I'll ask one from online. What are features of AI besides automation that are not common and I should tap into?
That are not common. Well, honestly, I think about 5% of us are actually using AI probably at a level that taxes the system. But I would say the number one place right now to really look at is agents. So it's in the news and it's so complicated. But and 6 months ago when it started to come around, everybody's like, agent this, agent that. All an agent is when you put something into ChatGPT, it'll accomplish a task. So you say, write me an email to my boss saying I need a raise. That's one thing. An agent is objective, so objective oriented. So you would say, give me a plan to look at all the ways that I could get a raise and set me up for success. So it will look at your peers, it would look at what you've done this year, it would figure out and it would give you a plan. Or where I just today, like these slides, it looked at all my data, which I shared through Google Docs and Notion, and I just told it, look at what I've said before. And Susan had given me a list of things that she thought people would be interested in. I said, make sure we cover all these things. And then I gave it, I don't have my laptop or I'd show you. I gave it like 4 paragraphs of what I wanted in the presentation, and it completed it. Now, if I had a little bit more time, I probably would have spent another hour or so formatting it, but it still got all of my stuff in there. And creating PowerPoints is the world's biggest time suck. I don't know. I start thinking I'm going to do it in half an hour, 8 hours later. I still hate my presentation. It's still not done. So agentic AI is accomplishing tasks. I'll give you another example where it might be good. Is we do all things AI here, and I want to reach out to all the local press. So I used it for research, and I said, go out look for a 100-mile radius of all media outlets to Durham, North Carolina, and create a press list. And then go through all the social media outlets that are oriented to that. So influencers, Facebook groups, Reddit, give me a list. About 45 minutes later, I had a pretty darn good list. It didn't take me any time. It just ran, it's running queries, it's collating the data. Agents are probably the best way to do that. And the two ways that I would say are most accessible to everyone is in ChatGPT now, that little plus sign in your toolbox, agent mode. If you give it a objective, before, like what you might do is create the outline for a report. And you look at it, you edit the outline. Then, okay, now write the report. Now edit the report. Now do all these things. I have prompts that are probably thousands and thousands of words that show my agent what to do. And it's not just the process, but it gives it examples. So this goes back to the taste thing, is if I have a report I really like, or say your boss or your client or someone complimented on you, that's an example that you could use to inform the agent, because it knows, like if you said, give me a list of all the press outlets, I could say that. But if I could give it a list and give it the 5 journalists or the 5 social media, like I don't want the hateful social media, I want the happy social media people. I'm like, 5 people like this in this area, and I give them a list. Or if I wanted to write a report, here's a copy of a report that did really well with my peers, my boss, who whatever. Those examples, that's context engineering. That's what's really important to make those agents sing. All right, I think we're probably at the end. I could have talked to you guys all day. I will tell you that every month we do events called All Things AI. They're on meetup.com. And I really try and curate it to educate the users. And then I meet people. A couple months ago, I had Triangle Women in STEM. And if anybody's part of that group and knows the crazy and wonderful Sunny Myers, had me come in here and teach 100 PhDs how to use AI. It was fun. I like to do that. And we try and make sure that we have educational programming, because personally, this is sort of, I could work like on Meals for Wheels or Soup Kitchen, and that's not good leverage. I have a lot of AI experience and I enjoy meeting people. So this is sort of my passion project. And then every March, we do an event at the Carolina Theater, and this next year, and the Durham Convention Center. We'll have 4,000 people there. Day one, we'll train. I'm hoping, last year we trained 750 people on day one live. I want to train 2,000 this year. So those are opportunities. And then if you're part of the group, we usually, like I point to other resources. So that's a good way. And there's another one, AI RTP. There's a couple other ones, AI Tinkers. If you're really technical, like if you want to build robots that are AI enabled, those are the kind of projects they do. So thanks for your time. I would love to connect with you. Feel free on LinkedIn to connect with me. That's one of the parts of the empathy and connection I think is really important. So thanks for having me today. It's good to meet you all. Hope to see you again. But thanks for having me, Susan.
So yeah, please stick around. We've got some refreshments out in the lobby, and we'll have some networking for another half an hour or so. But thanks so much for coming. Our next event is October 16th. And the topic is everything you need to know about biowork, which is certification that you can get through the community college system to enable you to get entry-level positions in the biomanufacturing industry. Thank you.
What's that?
Let's do it like a Stack Overflow.
Stack Overflow, the problem with it right now is the relative volume of information.
I just have to know what to try to accomplish, right? So like